The terrifying discovery. The Galactic Science Council was the most powerful scientific organization in the known universe. It had mapped thousands of planets, categorized countless life forms, and classified every world according to its habitability and danger level. But on this day, everything changed. Deep in the heart of the Federation Research Station Omega-7, a team of scientists gathered around a holographic display. The room was filled with tension as Dr. Vexra, a senior researcher from the Selvari species, examined the latest planetary scan results. The numbers on the screen made no sense. Her assistant, a young insectoid named Zurlan, hesitated before speaking. "Doctor, is this a mistake?" Dr. Vexra double-checked the readings. Temperature fluctuations, violent seismic activity, a gravity field stronger than most habitable planets, atmospheric instability. No, it was not a mistake. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "We have found a Class 14 Deathworld." The room fell silent. A nightmare of a planet. No one had ever seen a Class 14 Deathworld before. The Galactic classification system only went up to Class 10, and even those were considered unlivable for most species. Class 5 was already dangerous. Planets with extreme weather, high predator density, or unstable environments. Class 10 was the stuff of nightmares, worlds where no intelligent species could survive for long. But Class 14, that was beyond imagination. Dr. Vexra's hands trembled as she pulled up real-time footage from the probe orbiting the planet. The scientists watched in horror as the display showed. Massive storms raging across continents, with winds powerful enough to tear apart mountains. Volcanoes erupting constantly, spewing rivers of molten rock that reshaped the land every few months. Oceans filled with violent whirlpools, monstrous waves crashing with the force of planetary bombardment. Gigantic predators, larger than any known life form, roaming freely across the land, hunting creatures that looked just as terrifying. Gravity levels 30% stronger than any normal habitable planet, making movement difficult for most species. One scientist, a reptilian Kador, muttered in shock. "No species could survive here. This world is a death sentence." Dr. Vexra nodded. "We must report this immediately to the Galactic Council." Panic in the Council. Within hours, the Galactic Science Council was in emergency session. Representatives from every major species were present, their faces filled with fear. The council chamber, usually a place of calm discussion, was now filled with shouting and disbelief. The Supreme Elder, a towering being from the Zilfar race, slammed his staff on the ground. "Order. Let Dr. Vexra present her findings." The room went silent as the holographic display showed the Deathworld in real time. Gasps and murmurs filled the air. One council member, a high-ranking diplomat from the Volari species, shook his head. "This planet should not exist. It violates all laws of planetary evolution." Another, an elder scientist, adjusted his reading device. "A world this hostile should be completely lifeless." Dr. Vexra took a deep breath. "And yet, it is not." The room fell into absolute silence. She continued, "Not only does life thrive here, but it has adapted in ways beyond our understanding. Every organism on this planet is built for survival in extreme conditions." The Supreme Elder narrowed his eyes. "Then we must label this world as forbidden. No species should go near it." The council members nodded in agreement. This planet was too dangerous. No civilization could possibly inhabit it. And then, a communication alert flashed across the room. A message that shakes the galaxy. A new transmission had arrived. Encrypted, high priority, sent directly from the human diplomatic corps. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Humans, why would they be contacting them now? The Supreme Elder tapped his staff. "Play the message." The holographic display flickered, revealing the face of a human representative. His expression was calm, his tone neutral, but there was something unsettling about his confidence. He spoke only one sentence. That planet you found. The Class 14 Deathworld. He leaned forward, his eyes filled with something the Council couldn't understand. We call it Earth. The galaxy holds its breath. The Council members froze. For a moment, no one spoke. No one even breathed. Then, chaos erupted. Shouts filled the chamber. Panic spread like wildfire. Impossible. No intelligent species could evolve on a planet like that. They must be lying. Dr. Vexera stood there, her mind unable to process what she had just heard. Humans were from that place, a planet classified as beyond deadly, a world where even the strongest life forms in the galaxy would struggle to survive. Her scientific mind raced. How could they evolve in such a hostile environment? Unless humans were stronger than anyone had ever imagined. She turned to the Supreme Elder, whose face had gone pale. "What do we do?" she asked. The Supreme Elder's voice was barely above a whisper. "Pray that they remain our allies. The impossible becomes reality." The Galactic Science Council had seen many strange things in the universe. They had discovered planets with floating mountains, stars that burned in multiple colors, and life forms that defied biology itself. But nothing had ever shaken them like this. The Class 14 Deathworld was Earth, and humans were its inhabitants. Denial and disbelief. The council chamber was still in chaos. Some scientists refused to believe it. A high-ranking scientist from the Valeri species, a race known for their logic and reason, stood up. His mandibles twitched in frustration. "This is a lie. A trick. No intelligent species could evolve on a planet like that." Dr. Vexera, still processing the shocking revelation, took a deep breath. "We have historical records of humanity. Their existence is well documented. If they say Earth is their home, we must verify it." The Supreme Elder, his usually firm voice unsteady, nodded. "Gather all data on humanity. We need to understand what we are dealing with." A team of scientists rushed to pull every recorded detail about the human species. Within moments, holographic screens displayed their history, biology, and recorded achievements. What the Council saw left them speechless. The truth about humanity. As the data scrolled, the atmosphere in the chamber shifted from disbelief to horror. A reptilian scientist named Gorthak read aloud from the human records. His voice trembled. "Humanity has survived multiple planetary extinction events. They have lived through supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and ice ages. Their planet is covered with some of the deadliest creatures ever recorded. Despite these dangers, humans have thrived." The room fell into silence. Then, the screens changed to show footage from Earth. A recorded video played, captured from an old human expedition. It showed a human diver swimming alongside a massive, sharp-toothed creature called a shark. "They swim beside predators," a Selvari scientist whispered in horror. Another clip showed humans climbing sheer rock cliffs without safety gear, battling giant sea storms in small boats, and running directly into burning buildings to save others. The chamber grew colder. Humans weren't just survivors. They were thrill-seekers. They ran toward danger. A scientist from the Tavari Empire, a species known for their fragile bodies, backed away from the screen. This is insanity." They embraced their death world. Fear spreads across the galaxy. Word traveled faster than light. Within hours, every major empire, trade network, and intelligence agency had learned the truth. Humans came from a Class 14 death world. The reaction was universal fear. The Drexian warlords, once planning a military invasion of human space, immediately canceled all war plans. The Valeri diplomatic court, which had been considering placing trade restrictions on humans, suddenly sent an invitation for peaceful cooperation. The Zilfar Empire, known for enslaving weaker races, officially declared humanity as untouchable. No one wanted to make enemies of the species that survived a world deadlier than anything in the known galaxy. A bold decision. Sending a science team to Earth. Despite the fear, some council members demanded proof. A stubborn scientist named Professor Xalun, one of the Federation's most respected minds, spoke up. We cannot base our knowledge on rumors. We must send a research team to Earth. The council hesitated. Sending scientists to a Deathworld. It was madness. Dr. Vexera turned to the Supreme Elder. We need to understand humanity. If we truly want to coexist, we must see their world with our own eyes. The Supreme Elder sighed. He knew the risks, but he also knew they had no choice. If humans were truly as powerful as their world suggested, the galaxy had to understand them. With great hesitation, he gave the order. Assemble the research team. They will go to Earth, and they will return with the truth. Little did they know, what they would find on Earth would change the galaxy forever. The fear spreads across the galaxy. The decision to send a research team to Earth spread across the galaxy like wildfire. It was a bold move, a reckless move. No species had ever attempted to set foot on a Class 14 Deathworld and survived long enough to tell the tale. The scientific community was divided. Some saw it as an opportunity to learn about humanity, while others called it suicidal. Meanwhile, the galactic public reacted in fear and disbelief. Reactions from across the stars. The Drexian warlords. The galactic warriors. The Drexians were one of the most powerful warrior races in the galaxy. They prided themselves on strength, honor, and combat. When news of Earth's classification reached the Drexian High Command, Supreme Warlord Cragmole stood frozen, reading the report with narrowed eyes. A younger commander scoffed. A Class 14 Deathworld. Impossible. No species could survive that. But Cragmole simply placed the report down and muttered, then explained the humans. A heavy silence filled the war chamber. For years, the Drexians had debated whether humanity could become a worthy enemy, one strong enough to challenge them in battle. Now, there was no doubt. One of his officers spoke nervously. My lord, should we prepare a campaign against them? Cragmole chuckled darkly. No. We will do what we always do when we find a force greater than our own. His officers glanced at each other in confusion. Cragmole smirked. We will offer them a seat at our table. If they refuse, then we pray they do not see us as prey. The Valeri Trade Council, the economic superpower. The Valeri, a species known for their economic empire, saw the report on Earth's classification and immediately halted all trade restrictions on humanity. Their grand merchant, a four-eyed being named Zalven, tapped his claws nervously against his datapad. His advisors whispered urgently, Sir, we must act. If humans can survive such a world, their biology must hold secrets we don't understand. Zalven narrowed his eyes. No, you fools. We do not study them. We do not provoke them. We open trade immediately. We make them our partners before they see us as threats. He turned to his assistant. Prepare a diplomatic message. Tell the humans that the Valeri seek cooperation. The Vorith Enclave, the slavers. The Vorith, a cold insectoid species, had once considered humans primitive and weak, potential candidates for enslavement in their empire. Now, their ruling queen, Queen Xilix, read the latest report and clicked her mandibles in distress. Humans evolved on a death world, and they are already reaching deep space. Her advisor, a nervous-looking Vorith, nodded. Ah yes, my queen. If we attempt to take them as slaves, we may provoke their wrath. Xilix hissed. Then we shall stay far away. I have no desire to see what a species raised in hell does to those who cross them. The research team prepares. Back on the Galactic Science Council's research station, the selected team of alien scientists prepared for the mission to Earth. Dr. Vexera was appointed as the head of the expedition. She would be leading a group of researchers from 5 different species, each selected for their expertise in biology, environmental sciences, and psychology. Among them were Professor Exaluan, a Valeri scientist specializing in planetary ecosystems. Researcher Gorthak, a reptilian biologist known for his studies on extreme survival adaptations. Dr. Frick 7, an insectoid vorith expert in physiology. Commander Relquin, a Drexian observer sent to document human combat capabilities. Each of them had one thing in common. None of them had ever set foot on a planet as dangerous as Earth. Their goal was simple: spend one standard galactic week on Earth, observe humans, document their survival methods, report back. But in the back of their minds, they all had the same thought: would they survive the mission? Final warnings before departure. Before they left, the Supreme Elder gathered them for a final briefing. His tone was grim. Understand this: no alien has ever set foot on a Deathworld and returned alive. You will be the first. Dr. Vexera nodded. We are ready. The Supreme Elder studied her for a long moment. Then he sighed. No, you are not, but you will learn soon enough. With that, the team boarded their research vessel and set a course for Earth. As their ship disappeared into hyperspace, the galaxy held its breath. What they would find on Earth would change everything. The first step on a Deathworld. The research vessel, a sleek, reinforced craft built to withstand extreme planetary conditions, exited hyperspace on the edge of Earth's orbit. Inside, the alien scientists stood at the viewing deck, staring down at the blue-green planet below. Dr. Vexera's heart pounded as she scanned the planet with her own eyes. It looked peaceful, but she knew better. This was the deadliest inhabited world in the galaxy. Atmospheric descent. First signs of horror. The ship's sensors flashed red before they even entered the atmosphere. Gravity fluctuations detected. Radiation spikes above normal survival thresholds. Unstable weather patterns forming. Professor Exaluan, the Valeri scientist, hissed in discomfort as the ship shook violently. Are we under attack? The ship's A responded. Negative. This is natural turbulence. Dr. Vexera narrowed her eyes. You mean the planet does this all the time? Affirmative. The ship lurched again. Lightning flashed outside the window, followed by a deafening boom of thunder. Gorthak, the reptilian scientist, clenched his claws on the railing. This world is insane. The ship landed on a remote, unpopulated area, away from human cities, to minimize the risk of exposure. As soon as the landing gear touched the ground, the ship's external scanners screamed with alerts. Atmospheric pressure shifting rapidly. Wildlife activity detected. Warning. Predatory creatures in proximity. Temperature dropping. Hypothermia risk within 6 hours. Dr. Vexera had turned to her team. We haven't even opened the door yet. Exaluan swallowed hard. How do humans live here? Vexera sighed. We're about to find out. First steps outside. The nightmare begins. The ship's doors hissed open, and the team stepped onto Earth's soil for the first time. Immediately, they felt the pull of the heavy gravity. Gorthak groaned. This planet, it's crushing me. Professor Exaluan struggled to keep his balance. How do humans walk in this? Dr. Frick 7, the insectoid, clicked his mandibles. We study human biology. Their bones and muscles have adapted to this extreme gravity. To them, this is normal. The wind howled as dark clouds gathered overhead. Commander Relquin, the Drexian warrior assigned to observe human combat skills, took a deep breath. His battle instincts screamed at him. This planet was alive. It was hunting them. A new alert flashed on their scanners. Life forms DT. The scientists turned, expecting some monstrous beast from the data reports. Instead, they saw a human family hiking nearby, completely unfazed by the environment. Dr. Vexera's eyes widened. Do they not feel the danger? A close encounter with Earth's wildlife. Before they could react, something rustled in the bushes. Frick 7 turned, scanning the area. Unknown creature approaching. Suddenly, a massive four-legged beast emerged. It had sharp fangs, muscular limbs, and eyes that locked onto them with predatory focus. Professor Axalun screamed, "We are going to die." The beast charged. Instincts kicked in. The scientists scrambled back toward the ship, their translators struggling to identify the creature. Gorthak panicked. "It's hunting us." Just as the beast leaped toward them, a sharp whistle cut through the air. The creature froze. Then it turned away from the terrified aliens and ran toward the human family. One of the humans, a large male, patted the beast on the head. "Good boy." Vexera blinked in shock. "What?" The human female laughed as she threw a round object into the distance. The beast chased after it, happily wagging its tail. Vrick 7 checked his scanner. His voice was hollow. "The creature is called a dog." Salun's entire body shook. Humans domesticated DA8. Gorthak whispered in horror. "What kind of species turns predators into playthings?" Humans, and their casual insanity. The scientists watched as the human family continued their hike, completely unaffected by the extreme conditions. Dr. Vexera stepped forward, gathering her courage. "We need to speak with them. We need to know how they survive here." As the aliens approached, the humans finally noticed them. The human male's eyes widened slightly. "Oh wow, aliens." The female smiled. "Welcome to Earth." Dr. Vexera cleared her throat. "We are researchers from the Galactic Science Council. We came to understand how your species survives on this Deathworld." The humans looked at each other. Then they laughed. The male grinned. "Deathworld. Lady, this is just a normal camping trip." Adalon nearly fainted. "A camping trip?" The humans shrugged. "Yeah, gotta enjoy the outdoors." Vrick 7 checked his scanner again. His voice trembled. They come here for fun." The human patted the dog on the head. "Of course. You guys should try it." The aliens stood in stunned silence. Humans were not just surviving on this nightmare world. They were thriving. They were laughing in the face of death. And worst of all, they were enjoying it. Dr. Vexera took a deep breath. This was only day 1. They had 6 more days to go. She wasn't sure if they would survive. The ultimate revelation. The research team had spent less than a day on Earth, and already their perception of reality was crumbling. Nothing made sense. The planet itself was a hostile nightmare. Violent weather, high gravity, unpredictable wildlife. And yet, humans thrived here. Dr. Vexera sat inside their temporary research station, reviewing their latest findings. Her hands trembled as she read the data. Humans should not exist. And yet they did. She turned to her team. "We need to understand how they survive here. The only way to do that, study the humans directly." Human biology. A horror story. Dr. Vrick 7, the Vorth biologist, had spent the last several hours scanning human physiology. The more he read, the more horrified he became. His mandibles twitched as he read the results. "This cannot be real." Dr. Vexera looked up. "What did you find?" Vrick 7's antennae trembled as he summarized his findings. Human bones were reinforced with calcium, making them significantly harder than most species. Their muscle density was far greater than galactic norms, allowing them to function in extreme gravity. They could survive injuries that would kill most life forms. Broken bones, deep cuts, even lost limbs. Their immune system was ridiculously strong, able to fight off infections that would be lethal to other species. They could adapt to extreme temperatures with minimal assistance. And then came the worst discovery. They can function for days without food, survive weeks with minimal water, and Vrick 7 swallowed hard. They can enter a biological state called adrenaline mode, which temporarily increases their strength, speed, and pain tolerance in response to danger. The room went dead silent. Professor Aksalun whispered. They have a built-in combat mode. Frick 7 nodded grimly. Yes, and if that wasn't terrifying enough, they can turn it on whenever they choose. The history of survival. Gorthak, the reptilian scientist, had been studying human history in parallel with Frick 7's biological research. His claws clenched as he reviewed their past. He turned to the group, his voice gruff and uncertain. We assumed they were just another advanced civilization. We were wrong. Dr. Vexera narrowed her eyes. Explain. Gorthak activated the holo-display. Images of Earth's history flashed before them. Wars that lasted for centuries, yet humanity survived. Natural disasters that wiped out civilizations, yet they rebuilt. Plagues that should have destroyed them, yet they endured. He zoomed in on the ice ages. This species has survived multiple extinction events. Their world has tried to kill them repeatedly. And every time, they adapted. They conquered their own planet before they ever left it. Commander Rel Quinn, the Drexian warrior, had been silent until now. He watched the history of human conflict, his expression unreadable. Then he chuckled. Dr. Vexera frowned. What's funny? Rel Quinn smirked. We thought we were the strongest warriors in the galaxy. He gestured to the screen. Look at them. They have been fighting their entire existence. Every step of their evolution was a battle for survival. His voice dropped lower. We are not the strongest. They are. The realization sent a chill through the team. The experiment. Testing human limits. The team decided they needed first-hand evidence. They approached a human volunteer, a soldier named Lieutenant Daniel Carter, who agreed to answer their questions and participate in a few non-lethal tests. Test 1. Pain tolerance. Dr. Frick 7 hesitated before asking, how much pain can your species withstand? Lieutenant Carter shrugged. Depends on the person. Gorthak tilted his head. What about broken bones? Carter chuckled. Yeah, I broke my arm once. Hurt like hell, but I finished the soccer game first. The aliens were horrified. Salun nearly dropped his datapad. You kept playing. With a broken arm. Carter scratched his head. Yeah, coach wouldn't let me quit. Test 2. Endurance. The team had Carter perform a simple running test. At first, the results were impressive, but not shocking. Then, Carter kept going, and going, and going. After 3 hours, he was still running. Kaksalun clutched his head. By the stars, do they not get tired? Dr. Vexera checked the data. Humans have evolved for endurance hunting. Their ancestors used to chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until it collapsed from exhaustion. The aliens stared in horror. Humans didn't need to be the fastest. They just needed to outlast everything else. The most terrifying discovery yet. After several days of research, the team had gathered enough data to confirm their worst fears. Humanity was not just a Deathworld species. They were the apex predators of their planet. They had domesticated some of the deadliest creatures. They had tamed the very forces of nature that tried to kill them. They thrived in an environment that would kill most species in minutes. And yet, they were not monsters. They were kind. They were compassionate. They cared for their wounded. They helped the weak. Dr. Vexera's hands trembled as she typed her final report. Humanity is a paradox. They are the deadliest species we have ever encountered. But they are also the only species willing to risk their own lives to save others. She swallowed hard. They are not to be feared for their strength. They are to be feared because, despite their strength, they choose to be kind. She looked at the data one last time, and then she made a terrifying realization. If humans had evolved this much on one planet, what would happen when they expanded into the stars? The final test. Can aliens survive Earth? The research team had studied humans. They had watched them defy pain, endurance, and logic itself. But now, They faced the ultimate question. Could an alien survive on Earth, like a human? The team had 6 days left on the planet. They decided to conduct a final experiment. The challenge: survive on Earth without advanced technology. No exosuits, no environmental shields, no artificial oxygen regulators. They would live as humans did. The results were catastrophic. Day 1. The first struggle: gravity and weather. The team stepped outside, wearing only basic protective gear. The first problem hit immediately: gravity. Zalun, the Voluri scientist, groaned. My legs feel like lead. Gorthak collapsed onto the ground, gasping. This planet is trying to crush me. Vrix 7, the Vorith, barely managed to move. Humans live like this every day. Dr. Vexra was barely standing. Adapt. We must adapt. The humans watching them laughed. Lieutenant Carter smirked. You guys okay? Adalun glared. You grew up in this gravity. How do you even function? Carter grinned. You get used to it. Then came the weather. The bright sun vanished behind thick clouds. Within minutes, the temperature plummeted. The wind howled as rain began to pour. Vrix 7 shivered. Delu, what is this? Carter glanced at the sky. Oh, a cold front's rolling in. No big deal. No big deal. The temperature had just dropped 30 degrees in minutes. Gorthak wrapped himself in a blanket. This world is insane. Carter tossed them some human-made jackets. You'll need these. Vrix 7 stared. Your species may need clothes to survive your own planet. Carter grinned. Yeah. What, you think we'd let the planet win? Day 2. The deadly ecosystem. By morning, the team had recovered just enough to attempt another test. They wanted to experience human survival techniques. Carter decided to teach them how to fish. The team followed him to a nearby river. Carter handed them fishing rods. All right. You guys ever catch your own food before? Faxalun tilted his head. Catch food. We grow it in sterile environments. Gorthak frowned. Or we hunt in controlled conditions. Carter chuckled. Not here. Here, we work for it. Within minutes, Carter had caught a fish with ease. The aliens? They were struggling. Vrix 7 dropped his fishing rod. This creature is actively resisting. Why does it fight back? Carter smirked. Because it doesn't want to be eaten. Talalun shuddered. Your prey? Fights back. Gorthak barely held onto his rod. This is ridiculous. Hunting should be efficient. Carter shrugged. Well, here's the thing. Earth doesn't make anything easy. The aliens were beginning to realize a terrifying truth. Everything on Earth was designed to fight for survival, and humans thrived in it. Day 3. The food problem. The team decided to try eating human food. This was their biggest mistake yet. Carter took them to a human restaurant and ordered something called spicy wings. Vrix 7 inspected the dish. This appears edible. He took a bite. His entire body convulsed. It burns. He shrieked. Taxaluan gasped for air. Why do humans eat poison? Carter laughed. That's just spice. It's not poison. Vrix 7 collapsed, his body twitching. ETFELs like fire. Gorthak groaned, clutching his stomach. What? What do humans eat for nutrients? Carter grinned. Everything. The room fell silent. Talun paled. Define everything. Carter smirked. Meat, plants, roots, fruits, insects, pretty much anything that won't kill us. The aliens stared in horrified realization. Humans weren't just survivors. They were apex omnivores. Day 4. The nighttime horror. That night, the team experienced a true Earth terror. Carter had them sleep outside to simulate human camping. It was a mistake. The sounds of Earth's wildlife echoed through the darkness. Strange howls filled the air. Unseen creatures moved in the bushes. Saloon curled into a ball. We are being hunted. Gorthak gripped his emergency beacon. We must evacuate. Carter, meanwhile, was casually roasting marshmallows. Relax, guys. It's just the local wildlife. Dr. Vexra's eyes darted through the darkness. They are teaching us. Carter shrugged. Yeah, probably. Just don't act like prey, and you'll be fine. Vrick 7 shuddered. I hate this planet. Day 5. The breaking point. By the 5th day, the team had suffered enough. They had been battered by Earth's gravity, weather, wildlife, and food. They had barely slept. They had barely eaten. And yet, the humans still thrived. Carter was laughing, running, and climbing like the environment didn't matter. The aliens, they were physically and mentally broken. Dr. Vexra sat on a rock, head in her hands. How do you people do this? Carter grinned. Simple. We adapt. Day 6, the final lesson. The team was ready to leave. They had enough data. They had barely survived. But before they left, Carter said something that changed everything. Hey, if you guys ever come back, we'll take you somewhere really dangerous. The team froze. Salun's voice shook. This wasn't the worst Earth had to offer. Carter laughed. Oh no, this was just a warm-up. You should see Australia. The aliens stared in horror. Earth wasn't just a death world. Humans had made it their playground. The final test, can aliens survive Earth, continued. The research team barely lasted 5 days on Earth. They had endured bone-crushing gravity, violent weather, unpredictable wildlife, and terrifying food. They had faced exhaustion, pain, and fear like never before. And yet, the humans barely noticed any of it. Dr. Vexra and her team sat at their camp, defeated. The final day of their experiment was here, and they were ready to leave this planet behind forever. But then, something unexpected happened. An emergency situation. The calm morning was shattered by the sound of distant screams. The aliens turned their heads in alarm. Down the trail, a human hiker had fallen into a ravine. He was injured, badly. Vrick 7's antennae twitched. That fall should have killed him. Gorthak checked his scanner. He has multiple fractures and internal bleeding, yet he is still conscious. The human was groaning in pain, but trying to move. Kowloon looked at the drop. We must contact human authorities. But before any of them could react, Lieutenant Carter was already moving. Humans and their madness. Carter raced toward the cliff's edge, assessing the situation. The research team watched in shock as he began descending the cliff with nothing but a rope and his bare hands. Vrick 7's mandibles clicked frantically. What is he doing? Dr. Vexra's eyes widened. He's going after him. Without equipment, without safety protocols. Carter reached the injured hiker in under 2 minutes. He checked the man's pulse, muttered a few words, then began tying a rescue harness with the rope. Within moments, he signaled the team to pull them both up. The aliens, still in shock, helped lift them back to safety. The hiker, despite his injuries, was still conscious and smiling. Damn, that was a rough fall, he muttered. Vrick 7's claws trembled. You should be in shock. You should be unconscious. The hiker grinned. Nah, I've had worse. The team stared at him in disbelief. The final realization. That night, after the hiker had been taken to a human medical facility, the team sat in stunned silence. Everything they had seen over the past week led to one conclusion. Dr. Vexra took a deep breath. Humanity is not strong because of their technology. The others looked at her. She continued. They are strong because of each other, their instincts, their resilience, their ability to face death and still move forward. Alun whispered, no other species would risk their own life to save another in such conditions. Gorthak, the warrior, growled. Humans do it without thinking. Vrick 7, still shaken, clutched his datapad. And that makes them the most terrifying species in the galaxy. The team leaves Earth. Change. The next morning, the research team boarded their ship, exhausted and humbled. Before departure, Carter and his team waved them goodbye. "Come back anytime." Carter grinned. "Next time, we'll take you on a real adventure." Hexaloon visibly recoiled. Vrick 7 muttered in fear. "There will not be a next time." Dr. Vexera, however, simply nodded. "We will see." As their ship ascended into space, the realization hit them. Earth had not broken them, but it had changed them forever. And now, they carried a warning for the rest of the galaxy. The final warning. The research vessel streaked across space, carrying its passengers far away from the most terrifying world they had ever encountered. Earth. The team sat in silent exhaustion. They had survived, but they would never be the same. Dr. Vexera stared out the viewport, her mind replaying every horrifying moment. The crushing gravity, the violent weather, the unpredictable wildlife. But most of all, the humans. The report that shocked the galaxy. The moment they arrived at the Galactic Science Council, an emergency session was called. High-ranking officials from every major species gathered in the grand chamber, eager to hear the team's findings. Dr. Vexera took the podium. The room fell silent. She took a deep breath and began. "We have confirmed it. Earth is, without a doubt, the most dangerous inhabited world in the known galaxy." Murmurs spread across the chamber. The Supreme Elder raised a hand. "And the humans?" Dr. Vexera's hands tightened around her report. "They are more dangerous than we ever imagined." And yet, she hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "They are also the most resilient, cooperative, and unpredictable species we have ever encountered." The three greatest truths about humanity. She activated the holo display, showing images of Earth's landscapes, wildlife, and human achievements. 1. They survived the unthinkable. Extreme gravity. Their bodies adapted. Unstable climate. They built shelters. A world that constantly tries to kill them. They tamed it. 2. They are built for battle. Humans heal faster than most species. They have a built-in adrenaline system that allows them to fight past their limits. Their muscles and endurance exceed logical expectations. The chamber shifted uncomfortably. Even the Drexian warlords, a species known for their battle prowess, frowned. 3. They protect each other. A human risked his own life to save another without hesitation. Their species thrives on cooperation, even in the most extreme conditions. Despite their power, they choose kindness over conquest. Vexera's voice was steady but grave as she delivered her final statement. The galaxy must understand one thing. Humans do not just survive. They thrive in chaos. They do not just endure. They conquer challenges. And despite being the deadliest species we have ever encountered, they are not ruled by cruelty. They are ruled by compassion. The room fell silent again. The Council had expected a report on a dangerous Deathworld species. They had not expected a warning. The galactic response: fear and respect. The Council members whispered among themselves. Some were terrified. Some were curious. And some, like the Drexian warlords, were deeply impressed. The Supreme Elder finally spoke. "What is your recommendation, Dr. Vexera?" She exhaled slowly. "Do not provoke them." The room tensed. She continued. "Do not treat them as enemies. Do not treat them as lesser beings. If humanity chooses to expand into the stars, we must be prepared to accept them as equals, or risk creating an enemy we cannot defeat." The final message. The Supreme Elder nodded gravely. A galactic transmission was sent. To every empire, to every warlord, to every trader and diplomat. The humans of Earth are not to be underestimated. They are stronger than us, faster than us, and more adaptable than we can imagine. And worst of all, they are kind, and that makes them even more dangerous. The galaxy would never be the same. The humans had not asked for power. They had not declared themselves rulers. But the moment the universe understood what they truly were, they had already won.